Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Coach's Corner. We have a new guest with us. Quick, how you doing, man?
What's up? Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
And yeah, it
Pleasure to
was
have
pretty
you.
spontaneous today.
yeah.
Ramses be like a few minutes ago. Okay, I was like, why not?
Hey, man,
Let's get it.
we're out here. So we're gonna be talking about Samus today. Just like a quick rundown on Samus's history. I guess in 64, bad. Melee, high tier, right? Like almost viable. Like like you definitely see Samus from time to time, but now
She's
like
there
she's
on
definitely
the
fallen off,
sidelines.
right? She's definitely fallen off as of current day Melee, but definitely a character that used to be very relevant in Melee's meta. Brawl, trash? Question mark. I actually don't know how good Samus was in Brawl.
Oh no, she was very trash.
Yeah, very
She was
trash.
very trash.
A
Smash
bit
4
underrated if you ask me. Still bad
in
though.
Brawl. Okay, but like
Quick,
the
you
bar
had
was
a
so
Samus
high
in
in
Brawl,
Brawl.
right?
Sorry?
You had a Samus in Brawl, right? Quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, it
I
was.
remember Mewtwo King going to Japan and talking about how amazing YB the Samus was because he could actually take 3 out
Yeah,
of every
YB
10
too.
games on it. It's like, wow, this is amazing. I've never dropped a game to a Samus before. It's
I mean,
like-
the bar was high in Brawl. Beating Meta Knight
yes, it
For
was
was.
sure.
beating the top tiers in Brawl were really hard to do.
Yeah.
Smash 4, I don't think Samus was amazing, but Samus had some stuff. You know what I mean? If you didn't know about, especially what was it called, like the Shine Spark, right?
Shine Spark.
Spark, yeah, dash attack up B.
The dash attack up B that could KO you at like 0 and stuff like that. Still a character you have to respect, but I mean, I guess my bigger question is, and also projectile characters weren't that great in Smash 4 overall, and that was more of an engine thing in my opinion, right? Like how perfect shields worked and all that other stuff. Because when you're playing against a projectile character in the older Smash games, you bring up your shield a little earlier. If you get the perfect shield, cool, you punish them. If you shielded a little too early, you're fine, right? It's not like pairing where it's like a risk to go ahead and get that frame advantage on a projectile. But
I would argue that it was more a matter of them not being straightforward. The because at the very end, like literally the twilight days of the meta, we were seeing oddball projectile characters start to crop up.
Rise up.
Like obviously, yeah, like Rido is the easiest example, but like people forget T actually came out and made top 8 with Pac-Man in the West
Yeah.
before the end of Smash 4. And Pac-Man definitely was not as good in Smash 4, that's for sure.
Honestly, I think the biggest issue with Samus in Smash 4 was that like Mewtwo did a very similar thing,
and it was
but
just way
better.
better, yeah.
Yeah, they both had like a charge projectile that controlled the horizontal space, and then controlled more space with like rising aerials. Like Samus Rising Fair was good even in that game, but Mewtwo's Rising Fair was a kill move that comboed and did like 15%. And then they both controlled the ground, but Samus ground control with like F tilt. And that game was a lot worse because shield drop was better, and then Mewtwo had like his crazy down tilt as well. So I feel like, they're not the same. They're of course not, but they had very similar styles where they use charge projectiles to force approaches and then use normals to keep you out. And I feel like Mewtwo in that game, especially Mewtwo, just did it that much more efficiently. But Smash
Personally,
Ultimate. Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah. Personally, I love every Samus iteration besides the Smash 4 one. She felt definitely a bit too clunky for me, a bit too linear. Her aerials, for example, had a lot of lag. Like even the Brawl iteration was kind of more flexible. I remember her aerials having not a lot of landing, like she struggled there to kill especially. But she had that kind of smoothness, the kind of movement there, some tricks. And in Smash 4, it was like I really didn't like her that much there. She relied a lot on dash attack, if you guys
That's
remember.
true. Yeah, her dash attack was crazy in that game.
After they buffed it.
After they buffed it.
But before then, it was extremely.
So she kind of relied on a few strong tools and needed to build on that instead of and that's why she became too linear.
So how do you feel that changed in Ultimate? Because in Ultimate, like you're the Samus that plays non-linearly. I feel like if you compare like you to what I think is the most well-known Samus right now, Siski. Siski is known for, well, I think he is a bit linear, but he's extremely strong within like that linear playstyle. Like he's extremely good at getting the most out of a set amount of mix-ups that are extremely favorable. But if you compare it to like your Samus, there's a lot of mix-ups going on, a lot of things that are not like quote unquote optimal, but they work because of, well, her overall kit. Tell me a little bit more about how you feel her flexibility is in Ultimate as compared to Smash 4.
Yeah, first of all, the Chargeshot, right?
Mhm.
A lot of things got changed positively. She got the jump cancel, right? She got her combos out of the Chargeshot. In Ultimate, Sam's plays don't use the full Chargeshot, like nearly not at all. We all use usually the nearly full Chargeshot because this one is nearly as strong, but gives combo potential and has less lag, and that's why it becomes more safe. And also, I'm not sure if that was the case in Smash 4, but anyways, now the tap shield cancel, like you press, it's like basically a shot up, but pressing the shield button, and then she stops charging on the ground without shield coming up. And this is this kind of flexibility what gives her, like, what I love to do is like dashing around with her, going like just repositioning a lot and sneaking in some charges in between, and then just pressing the set cancel. And this gives a lot of freedom in my movement, while I can apply pressure, the horizontal pressure on the ground. Be like, hey, I charge. Oh, am I going to shoot? Ah, maybe not. Like, and if I mix it up well, opponents get confused. And this is one of many layers she got in this game, which I enjoy a lot, and which makes her also so good. Like Chargeshot is definitely like easily her best and strongest tool in the game, and can be used in so many different ways.
Her down special is also very good. That's one thing that move sucked a lot in Smash 4. Her down special, well, it was like it didn't become active very fast. There was something about it in Smash 4 that was really bad. Either it didn't have a lot of activity, or when you did the down special, it took a lot of time for the bomb to be active. It was I don't know which one it was, but I know it was really bad in Smash 4, and in Ultimate, it's very strong.
Yeah, it's definitely a great tool. Yeah. There's still a bit of the issue that I started to notice, maybe to also compare a bit already the previous meta with the later meta, like the now basically. The morph ball, the down B has like she's stuck in her ball for like around 1 second all in all.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I think the first person who started to punish that super hard was Gluttony actually, where I was like me, we are around mid range, and I'm like, okay, I do a down B and go back, so like I go away. So there's a bump between me and him. What he did was simply rushing in with either a shot up or full hop fast fall nair, killing me with nair into waft at like 60 because I did a down B in neutral. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to be more careful doing that.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
the thing that the down B opened up more than anything though is ledge trapping. I think
Oh yeah.
Samus's ledge trapping
Oh
in
yeah.
this game is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think.
Definitely.
Well, yeah, I
Go
think in
ahead.
general, like the strategy is very simple behind the ledge trapping, which is also very strong, right? It's very simple, it's very effective, and I think in when you're playing a character that the advantage, especially when it comes to ledge, right? If you like Smash 4 Fox, for example, was very cookie cutter in a sense where I'm just spamming up tilt, and then from there I'm just gonna I get it's a very simple strategy with very high reward, right? And it's in a very common situation in the game. I would say ledge trapping is probably the most common form of advantage state in Ultimate because most players will reset there, right? Unless you're like a Wario, unless you have a character that can go really high and avoid that situation, most characters are going to go to ledge in disadvantage, right? So I think that is a very rewarding thing to have as a character in general. Is when you have a really strong ledge trapping strategy and it's more on the simple side where it's like okay, like or like even Diddy Banana, right? I think there you can get a little bit creative with it and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, when you have an item or you have something out on the ledge trap that just covers 1 to 2 options and you're just really narrowing things down and you get a lot of reward from it, that's a very strong aspect to have in a character.
Absolutely.
The crazy thing about the bomb though is that it covers ledge hang, which forces
Right.
timings. That's the thing that like Banana doesn't do. Which like Banana's obviously really good, but the bomb forcing you to pick an option, otherwise you get hit by the bomb. And of course, like you can take the hit and hope Samus isn't reacting to it, which is actually fair enough. But that is still like a risk because you're making a read on what the opponent is anticipating, which is very, very hard to do accurately.
It's like getting hit by. It's a little different because Samus can, if Samus is aware and just reads it or is positioned for it, they can convert off of the bomb, right? But like, you know how sometimes you just hang against Roy and you're like, I'll take the soft jab, right? I don't care. Like, I'll take the damage and
Yeah,
maybe go back to the same position. But Samus has like a whole other layer on top of that because Samus can convert off of that into a KO. So I don't, I don't know if this is like a crazy statement to say, but I would say Samus is one of the strongest characters in the game at ledge trapping. I don't think that's
I
like a
agree.
far fetched thing, right? To say just because
Yeah.
your option like when you have an option that forces timings, like Ramses is saying, where like you will take damage or even get converted off of it. That's really strong.
There's one very important detail in Sam's ledge trapping is, so like Rams said, if you keep hanging, you get hit by the bomb. And there's like a big chunk of the cast when you keep hanging, get hit by the bomb. Samus can combo into a charge shot. So she simply does it. Her textbook ledge trapping by dashing back, covering the ledge roll, and then if she sees that the opponent just keeps hanging, and the character is in that set roster, like she can just shoot and bomb into charge or combos, and the opponent dies. It's crazy. Like there's no, but the ledge get way more complicated when this does not work. There are quite a lot of characters that they don't bounce high enough after getting hit while hanging, and then she can't follow up with charge shot. And those characters, they can, if they simply decide maybe to tank the hit of the bomb, and then they get into a kind of a mini game. Do they decide to double jump back into the stage and maybe risk it with a more offensive option? Do they decide maybe to re-grab the ledge? It's still a hard situation, but if the opponent has some good awareness what to do and maybe mixes up their options, they might get a good hole to make it back to the stage. In the end of the day, the job of the opponent is to get rid of the bomb. If there's no bomb anymore while they hang, maybe they can use up their invincibility frames because maybe the Samus timed also the bomb wrong. Then they can keep hanging, the bomb disappears, and then it gets way easier to get back.
That's
So
the hard thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's worth noting that bomb can't cover everywhere, and that you want to react to where the bomb is and whether or not it is spaced to hit your ledge hang. I think that a common misconception that people have is that just because she puts the bomb over where it's going to hit your means that it's going to hit your ledge hang, and just because she puts it over where it's going to hit your ledge hang means it's going to hit your get up or ledge jump. And so you need to pay attention to the nuance of how she's spacing that bomb drop, because different bomb drops cover slightly different things based on where it's going to time with your hurt box on your ledge option that you pick. And so you want to pay attention to that. And I think there's two general classes of player who handle her ledge traps well. And I think the first one that applies to all skill level is people who can judge, is it okay for me to take this hit? And will the position it puts me in be something that I can better handle, something that Samus is going to be forced to make a read? Because things like once the bomb isn't there, Samus can't cover ledge roll and ledge jump at the same time. The timings are going to be mixed. And so she generally has to either pre-commit to hit ledge jump because it's not reactable, or she is covering your ledge jump, except then she loses her ability to react to your ledge roll because she's already covering that ledge jump. And so the first iteration, when she first puts down the bomb, she sometimes is going to cover everything. And you need to accept, okay, I'm going to get hit. Which hit is going to punish me the least? And so you need to ask yourself that. Be ready. Think about what Samus looks like she's ready to hit. Because if you see Samus all the way back to hit ledge roll, odds are pretty good she's not ready for you to just suddenly jump into the bomb early, get smacked back off, and have your ledge regrab and vulnerability reset. And then because she's so far back, if she is going to come back to put the bomb up, it's going to take that time for the movement to set that back up, in which case, if she's setting that up, then she's also not in position to cover your ledge traps at the same time. And so you need to pay attention to the economy of the time that Samus has to create these positions. And so once you are educated on what she can do and when she's doing it, then it will help you better be aware, like Quik said, where you can recognize, oh, this is what the outcome should be for this very specific setup. And if I'm not ready for it, I need to wait. And if he's got me, he's got me. But people tend to just get up into the bomb without paying attention to what's going on or reacting or refreshing, like Charles uses the term. You need to take a snapshot when Samus drops the bomb. Think about how long it's going to be until your ledge option comes out. If you've already been hanging on the ledge and she's dropping the bomb, you can probably ledge roll and just go in. She'll still be able to hit you, but she's not going to, unless you're at high percent, she's not going to be able to put you back into that ledge trap position. You just take your lump, go back to neutral. And so people tend to just make reflexive plays or think, oh, I'm not comfortable here. I know that the hardest thing to execute on a technical level is get up. Since there's only one frame gap, I'm just going to get up into the bomb. Except that's just not how bomb works. It's not something that you have to time. It's there or it's not there.
The
And
bomb's
it's just a
transcended?
binary. It is a constant
No.
hitbox, or the proximity of it is.
So can
So
you
it'll
can you
always hit that
attack?
frame.
Can you like ledge drop, double jump, attack into the bomb and like get rid of the bomb through via attacking? Or
Yes.
I think you don't you explode the bomb if you attack it?
It can clank for sure, but
okay.
I think it's pretty hard from the ledge. I barely see that. I think.
Right, you'd have to
I
have a
imagine if you have
hitbox.
like if you have like an up air like Corins, you might be able to drop double jump up air it. But I think like most characters will just like have their hurt box collide into the bomb.
Well,
and
the
hit
issue
you.
is
Yeah,
even even if you clank, if Samus is by roll, they're gonna punish your
She
end dive on
punishes
the
you.
screen.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. So it's like that. That's more so probably the reason why characters don't do it, because if you can't, like maybe a Sephiroth can do like Samus hanging out by roll. Sephiroth does like ledge drop fair.
Fair and pokes all the way.
Maybe right, because that's one of the characters that can hit a character from roll from ledge. Right, one of the few
Oh
characters.
yeah. There a few characters have, of course, some privileges, like Sephiroth, because you mentioned him. If he has wing, he has 2 jumps, so they can just drop the ledge and jump, double jump, and then they have another double jump, so they can kind of wait out the explosion and then try to make it into the stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some characters have additional mix-ups for sure, but yeah, all in all, the ledge trap is super good.
I think one thing that is also important to note, and Tony kind of talked about it, is that like because Samus doesn't have a quick grab and she also doesn't have an amazing jab, like if you roll in at the wrong time, she can really struggle to punish you significantly. And there might be situations where she reacts and like presses down tilt, or if she's already charging Chargeshot, she can release it, of course. But those are pretty specific, and I feel like that's kind of what Quik also talked about, where he said like, okay, when I down B, I'm in down B for like a second, and Gluten just jumps over it and starts pressuring me, and like I get why, because like in that situation, what is Samus's best get off me option? And oftentimes it's up B out of shield, but like your mileage may vary. That move isn't like the most consistent. People can fall out. The range isn't amazing. So that's like that's another like dimension to the ledge trap. Like if you understand the economy of time, as Tony says, then you also find opportunities to kind of like sneak in and find hits to get hit by that are not that impactful. One thing that I wanted to ask Quick, because I know Dark Samus has a different release height of her charge shot. So that list of
Yeah.
characters who get comboed with down B to charge shot, is it like bigger for Dark Samus?
It should be a bit at least. This is actually a very good question. I know a chart where it's only if opponents hang on the ledge without any bomb and with full charge shot, and then Dark Samus has a few more characters who can hit by.
Then it should be the same for bomb. That's actually
Yeah.
like a decent.
That's actually interesting point there. Yeah, Dark Samus should have a bit easier to connect then. Yes.
I guess that could be a really good question for. I think maybe a lot of the viewers don't really understand the differences between Dark Samus and Samus, because when you look at it at surface level, they just have essentially the same moves, right? But yeah, Quick, could you just tell us really fast which character or what are the main differences between the two?
Okay, to put it like, I got even surprised recently by some differences. There are many details I don't even have exactly in mind, but one of the biggest ones is Dark Samus has better rolls, and it's crazy actually. It should be 3 frames each roll. It's fastest 3 frames each roll. It just ends the vulnerability, like where Dark Samus can be punished, are simply 3 frames less.
Wow, it's just
But
better.
yeah, it's just better. And I play Samus and I'm like, oh man, I want that too. Like, it's crazy. But sometimes I notice that Samus gets into a morph ball form at least, and that's why her heart box is small. So even where she is vulnerable a bit, here she's in the ball form. So
So you get the hurt box shift. It's a little trading,
Yeah,
right?
she's small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still Dark Samus Rose is still obviously better. But yeah, this is actually good transitioning all in all, because it's not only the rolls where Samus's hurt box is actually smaller than Dark Samus's. It's especially her double jump and her back jump where she curls up. Her hurt box gets significantly smaller than Dark Samus. And I just noticed myself after playing Dark Samus a bit for fun, I was like simply double jumping in the air to play around the opponent's attack, and I got hit, and I was like, what? Wait, did I get hit? That didn't make sense. And I was like, oh, alright. She's way bigger when double jumping. She's like the Spider-Man pose or what?
Right. Dark Samus wants to get hit.
Yeah, and even on the ground, if she's just standing, she's bigger. And even if she's charging, she's bigger. She is in that way more clunky. And now the interesting thing is, it's not a coincidence that I decided to stick to Samus and Siski to Dark Samus. Because the way how our playstyles work, I'm more movement-based player. I'm more like of a bait and punish player. And Samus shines more if you're a more movement-based player. You will have more good points for Samus because she's like I said, the hurt box, right? While Dark Samus, it's a bit better if she's played static, and exactly the way how Siski plays her, bit more linear, but the charge is a bit better, the rolls are a bit better. Even this is crazy actually. If you do like the dash dance with Dark Samus, like you dash forward and then you dash back again. This dash back animation is 1 frame faster of Dark Samus.
Huh.
I'm not 100% sure if I explain it right, but this is definitely true at some point that she's 1 frame faster when dashing back. And I'm like, it's crazy. Like, there's some things where she's simply a bit better, but she's more clunky and her box is bigger. This is how you can sum it up. And her charge is a bit a bit more deep. That means she can hit like Pichu, for example, easier. But it's not only a good thing that it's more deep, because Samus may hit opponents who try to jump away a bit easier.
So Dark Samus's full charge shot hits lower, or just her charge shot is lower to the ground.
She
So
releases it from a lower point.
Got it. Okay, which will help with like ledge trapping and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but then...
yeah. That's why the down B combos into Chargeshot a little bit more consistent.
There's one crazy detail. Samus' up B animation when she lands. So imagine Dark Samus is whiffing the up B, and now she's landing on the platform. All right. Do you remember she is floating a bit in the air like Mewtwo, right? She's moving a bit like Mewtwo, and her hurt box is not on the ground for a few frames. That means she will tend to hurt box shift some attacks when she's in that up B animation when landing. It's insane. Samus doesn't have that. And I'm like, come on. And Siski told me about it. I was like, really? And then when we had our set, I tried to punish that with an up tilt. Up tilt punishes people on the platform and on the ground. And I did up tilt, didn't hit it. I was like, it's really insane. Crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy. That's cool.
It sounds like a pretty even trade-off, honestly. Like it really just depends on the style you want. I think if I were to personally pick one that was better, I think smaller hurt boxes is a very kind of consistent thing to have. So I would definitely lean more towards Samus. but I can see there is still benefits towards Dark Samus, and if you want that better roll, if you want that lower charge shot, the hurt box shift on the up B, there are benefits of picking Dark Samus over Samus. But yeah, wow, that's really interesting. That's a pretty long list of things on it. I did not think there was that many differences.
There's even more, but yeah,
It's a very
there's
small,
too many details. Yeah,
small question. Quick, do you know if the distance on the rolls is the same, or does Samus roll go further?
it should be the same.
Okay,
I can't 100% say, but I'm pretty sure.
okay. Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
The,
I'll go ahead, Tony.
The Samuses are pretty split among top level Samuses. Over here in the US, we have like Icy Mist and Teaser over in the Samus camp, and then obviously over in the EU, we have Quik on Samus, and then Siski on Dark Samus, and then over in Japan, they also have it pretty split down the line, as far as I'm aware.
Because
Yeah.
YB is Dark Samus, right?
Yes,
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
YB's so good, but I think he's pretty inactive since a
Unfortunately.
while.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Yara is playing a lot now, I think.
Yeah, there are many. Like it's mainly in
Definitely
Japan.
use
There are
Switch.
great Samus players for sure.
I think Yara plays Dark Samus primarily too.
Oh, he does. Okay, I thought he
yeah.
used normal Samus for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess. Man, Samus, even the track record for Ultimate's results, right? I feel like Samus has always been a pretty consistent threat in the meta, even when you think early on in the meta, because we had YB's performance at, I believe it was, Metroid Saga, right? And
Prime Saga.
or Prime Saga, right? Yeah, Prime Saga, and that was ninth place finish for YB. If I have to remember off the top of my head, I believe.
He plays well. Let's
Yes,
put it that way.
Void confirmed it. Void was like, yeah, he
Okay.
fucked me up and got ninth. All right, so he did get ninth.
Thanks, Void.
Thank you, Void.
So yeah, and then obviously right now, I mean, Quik, Siski, there's a ton of Samuses like across multiple regions that are doing well. So I think it's fair to say that Samus is a very meta relevant character. I know there was even that one Let's Make Big Moves where I believe you were there, right, Quik?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had like the Samus results are very interesting. Is there something that you think kind of prevents Samus to peak into that like top 3, top 4 placements at majors? Because I feel like there's been a lot of majors where we'll see Samus get like the 9ths, the 7ths, maybe the 5ths, right around there. But it feels. What do you think is the barrier? Is it just? Do you think the character lacks in certain matchups? Do you think the players just need to keep on improving? Like, what's your opinion on that, Quik?
Oh, okay. Very good question. So, I would say the character is easy to learn. If you look at the first layers, but to master all the matchups, that's hard, man. Like there are some matchups for her, where like many Samus players say she's too bad for that. Where I don't agree with. You just need to play very different. Like, for example, there's some matchups where you can't rely too much on a Chargeshot. And then you need to play out of the box. The moment you need to play out of the box, personally, it works for me in free play. Whenever, though, I'm on a big tournament, the bigger the tournament, the bigger the pressure. The harder it gets to play out of the box. The harder it gets to not trust entirely your instincts, but... Right, I tend to, like many other Samus, tend maybe to focus a bit too much on charge, and then when it gets tense, then I press maybe the B button a bit too much instead to claim the stage control, to claim the center stage and keep pushing. Some matchups I need to do that. And then in a tournament, when it gets important, I don't. And this is something I also recently working on a lot. I think Samus in pressure situations, like she can be very obnoxious to deal with, and she's a good tournament character, don't get me wrong. But there's some other matchups where you really need to have that kind of open mind and being really able to stay flexible with her, in my opinion.
It's hard because if you're in a pressure situation and you cannot rely on your intuitive options, it requires so much mental energy, and you don't always have that resource in tournament, right? And especially for a character like Samus who relies on, in a lot of matchups on like a few core tools that complement each other very well, having to stray from that and then like Quik says, think outside the box, right? And basically rely on tools that you normally don't rely on, and doing so with confidence, I can see that being pretty hard, especially for a character like Samus because she is so specific. I feel like there will always be characters that do well against that specificity, like Min Min, right? Like Min Min is a character who
Very good example. Yeah.
yeah, she relies on a very specific game plan. So if you have the tool set to beat that specific game plan, then she's gonna struggle within that game plan. And she can deal with it. She has tools to do so, but it's very much outside of your comfort zone. And for Samus, I think it's less extreme than for Min Min. But I think it's kind of like the same dynamic. And I think in that sense, if you look at the current meta, there are very few characters that have that dynamic. I think if you look at like Steve, Aegis, Cloud, Kazuya, even something like Riddles playing Terry, all those characters they are like complete characters within the system that they prefer, right? And usually if they're losing, they can do things better within that system that they prefer. And if your character cannot function entirely within well the interactions that you want to play, then you're gonna have to spend more mental energy to make up for that. And that is not a weakness of the character per se, but it is a human limitation, especially in bigger brackets. And I think if that is like your question, Charles, which is why I don't Samus doesn't get into like that tough cut. Well, oftentimes those matches come down to matches that you play at the end of the day. And if you play at the end of the day, you don't have the mental energy to play in a different way than what is intuitive for your character. Then yeah, that would make sense that is like a huge barrier for why Samus gets denied that top cut.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I like that we're kind of getting into the topic of mental stamina, mental energy, right? And the thing about hard matchups, or even say if a matchup's doable, right? But you can't do the cookie cutter thing your character does, which is usually when you have to start thinking like, okay, this either could be a match. It depends on how broken your character is. Some characters, it's like, okay, I can't spam T-Jolt as Pikachu and win. Like you probably have a bunch of other options that you can win with, right? But then there's other characters where it's like, okay, well if Samus isn't doing the charge shots and all the other stuff, obviously her other tools are compensated over the fact that she has that kind of ranger setup, right? So obviously not the crazy in terms of boxing, right? So okay, I'm assuming most of these matchups are characters that can just find their way around Samus's projectiles, create these boxing scenarios where the return is not that great, right? And even when you, actually, I was just talking to Light about the Game & Watch matchup on the phone a little bit earlier, and it's just simply the return for Fox is so not in favor of Fox when fighting Game & Watch, right? Like run up, Game & Watch runs up shields. What can Game & Watch get out of that situation? 50 damage in a juggle situation, right? What does Fox get when he wins in that situation? A grab. If Game & Watch doesn't spot dodge, if Game & Watch does spot dodge, Fox just gets a grab, and then what? You get 9 damage, you put him on the edge, and you can't ledge trap him anyway. So you're going to stand by roll and just wait. So in terms of sheer return, because even if Samus gets an up B, it's like, oh, are we both at 0? I literally can't do this move or I get punished, right? And then even on like mid percent, I get some damage and then neutral reset, right? And then maybe at the later percents, I get some damage and maybe a juggle and stuff like that, right? So it's like you're really starting to break down like, okay, what kind of return do I get and what kind of return do you get in these situations? And in my opinion, that's what kind of justifies bad or good or even matchups, right? And so you got to look at how often can my character win neutral, and then after that, like what do I get for winning neutral, and what do they get for winning neutral, and stuff like that. And Samus does have in my opinion, one of the more solid disadvantages with the morph bomb. You get to like kind of wiggle in the air. You have a bunch of air mobility drifts. You're dropping the bomb, right? You can kind of drift onto the
Better
stage.
recovery too.
Really solid.
I think it
recovery.
depends a lot. Sometimes it's hard to land for sure, even with the down B.
Because you're still floaty, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're still floaty. That's true.
You're still floaty. Your best bet is like using down B to try and reset to the ledge to try and like drift away and stuff like that. But
this is actually exactly.
Right.
But she has some really good mixes of the ledge. Like Fair from ledge is a little bit committal, but the hitbox is huge. Zair from ledge can poke up further. You can do the you do that quick where you like ledge drop, double jump, down B, and regrab the ledge.
Yes.
And you get your invincibility back because you down B on the
it's like
stage and then you roll back off.
Touching the ground of the stage like slightly and then immediately go back. And
every
then you
down
got
B.
everything back. That's pretty good.
And then you get everything back, and you have like a down B hitbox to kind of like help you. So she has some ways to get off the ledge. I think her disadvantage is solid. It's like I would say if her disadvantage has a weakness, it's that it's not a disadvantage that allows for a lot of reversals generally. Whereas something like Mifra fast fall nair, now she's an advantage, right? Whereas Samus has a little bit more of a struggle doing that, but is good at resetting. I think what makes Samus work even in her bad matchups is her ledge trap. Like if she up tilts you at 80 and you die, it's like it doesn't matter if it's just an up B. Afterwards, you push them to the ledge, and then you up tilt them and they die. Or you down B them and they die. Because like let's not forget, if you do take a down B hit, even if she doesn't combo off of it, when you regrab, you have very limited invincibility, right? Because you haven't had too much airtime, which makes the pressure even bigger. And the up tilt covers, I think, jump and ledge hang. We saw that. I think it was Siski versus Skittles. Was it Skittles, Young Link? Where I think Siski up tilted him at like 70 with full rage, and he just straight up died. And everyone was like, 1.1, 1.1, 1.1.
There's actually one super important thing. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, go ahead.
The reason why Skittles died there so early because he grabbed with the Zer immediately the ledge. When grabbing with Zer the ledge, invincibility frames are super low. So, as a general advice to everyone who listens to this podcast later, if you have the time, stall off stage. Because the longer you're off stage, the more invincibility frames you have. Yeah. And the more the chance is high to stall out the bomb explosion. Or if possible, just mix it up off stage. So you confuse the Samus. That the bomb placement is mistimed. And then you can stall out again the bomb, and then the bomb is gone.
That's a very, very good point. The amount of airtime off stage is really going to dictate. Essentially, when Samus, at top level, when Samus lays down that bomb, they are essentially trying to overlap the bomb exploding at the time your invincibility runs out. So that is what the Samus is trying to do. Now the Samus
usually
has to
try to land it. Sorry.
No,
just one sentence. We usually try to land in the moment they are grabbing the ledge few frames before we landed there.
Right, and that's going to perfectly overlap because you essentially want the bomb explosion to be able to if you ledge hang, you get hit by bomb explosion, which means you have to pick an option, tick tock now, and then at that point you can be like, I'm going to stand by roll react, get maybe a softer punish, right? But I'm going to cover all options, or maybe throw out the up tilt to cover jump, or throw out the back air to throw something out to cover the jump timing because jump is hard to react to, but if the timing is forced, then you can cash out big, right? And because it's like, okay, well, if you jump here, I kill you. If you don't, you get blown up, and then you got to snap ledge, and then now I get to recover from the lag and then set up again, right? So if you go for these certain stalls, one, they could go for the bomb right when you stall, like maybe a Fox Shine or something like that, right? And when you stall yourself to the ledge, and also just giving yourself more airtime, which gives yourself more invincibility, that can also throw the bomb timing off. So very, very good tips to counteract this because I feel like with most players, when they're getting ledge trapped by Samus, it's just like, this is doomed. I can't do anything, right? So in certain situations, it almost feels helpless, but managing how much airtime you have, managing your stalls off stage, and even like Tony said, managing getting taxed, knowing in a situation where it's like, I am going to get hit. This player is Excalibur, gonna hit me because he's set up the bomb at the perfect time. I just need to get hit by the thing that takes I'm not gonna die from. I just can't die here, right? And even thinking back to Smash 4 Bayo days, there was a lot of times where you'd get hit by Bayo and you're like, I'm gonna SDI to just not die. I'll take 70, but I won't die, right? Stuff like that. So just understanding the situation you're in and understanding that you're going to have to take a hit, just take the least threatful hit. But I think that's one thing Samus always has an out in, no matter the matchup, right? I think her return might not be the on stage neutral, but getting a hit to put the opponent into a ledge trap is probably your one out in a lot of bad matchups. I would just assume. I don't know, but I would assume that's probably your go-to in terms of man, this matchup really sucks, but if I get this hit in neutral, which is hard to do, but I get this hit, I'm probably not going to do a crazy combo string, but if I can get them on the ledge, that's where I can maybe turn this thing around, right? Because I just feel like, especially with Samus, when you start getting towards the top 64s and the top 32s, you probably run into more of your bad matchups. That was another question I wanted to ask you: is like which characters off the top of your head are you feel like are pretty challenging, or the characters that make you play outside of the box, right? Because I feel like it's going to be more of these like really quick, speedy characters, right? That's like the classic Smash top tier, right? Essentially, why Mithra is good.
Olimar. It's Olimar.
Is it? Oh, right. Olimar. Well, Olimar
is the worst. I think.
Is that the worst? Is that the
Duck Hunt.
absolute worst?
I think every Olimar Pikmin blocks Chargeshot, right? It's like impossible to use that move.
I wouldn't say on paper it's actually not that bad, really. But about this out of the boxing we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened against the boss. He 3-0'd me easy, but in free play it was really not that bad. But I couldn't capitalize. I couldn't play like that. I didn't have that awareness of every detail when you just free play and you don't have any pressure. It's so much easier. But then you need to keep track of every single Pikmin getting thrown at you, playing a round of those, finding a hole to get in and approach as a Samus. Then it gets very complicated in a major. Yeah.
So
what are some other matchups quick? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you, but I think it's an interesting question, right?
Right. I was going to ask like pretty much the same thing, but more so archetype, because I would like off the top of my head, I would assume the hard matchups are like Fox, like these really quick characters that get up in your face, like, or Mithra, right? Like, oh, I'm really quick, I'm forcing a boxing situation, or maybe even some characters like that have good air mobility that kind of drift into you, like Mario or Wario, right? Like they kind of like fly around in this 45-degree area. But then you have like Fair and stuff like that. But I'm just curious which archetypes of characters kind of force you to play outside of the box. Because is it like maybe it's the other? What if it's like the characters that shut down your projectiles? Like there's Villager with Lloyd, or like Olimar with Pikmin that kind of force you to kind of shut down Chargeshot, and then all of a sudden you got to play real different, right?
There are two archetypes. The first archetype is, which we talk now about quite a lot indirectly, is those characters who can deal with charge really well and eventually even can zone themselves. So like Duck Hunt do, Olimar. Min is like simply she doesn't let you charge a lot, so you need to push. But let's talk about the other archetype, which is actually more interesting because they're more in the meta. And it's like you guys said, it's the rush down, the faster characters. Yes.
NA loves Roy.
Hey man, and I'm gonna tell you, Chrome is much harder than Roy even. Like Chrome is
Wait. Quick, you're in an American podcast. Don't compliment Crom on this podcast. Well, he's a bit tier. He's a bit tier, guys. I'm sorry. We don't believe in Crom.
Yeah, on this podcast, Ramen should play Roy on this podcast.
Oh my goodness.
He said he's gonna work toward it, so we'll see.
We'll see. That's the right.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So you feel like Crom's actually harder to deal with than Roy?
Yes.
Wow.
One reason is Roy's the more in your face, right? And then what do we have? We have the RP out of shield. And Sourcebow don't hurt that much. And even the shield press is not that big. And then Chrome, he will space around the shield. And then the shield pressure is so much more obnoxious. And his combo game is like Samus is made to get comboed by Chrome. Like the combos work so well against her. Okay. And the ledge trapping is so hard. Yeah, it's so hard to get back to the stage against Chrome.
Right, because you can't just take the weak Roy jab, right?
Against
Chrome, you'll just die.
Like even against Cola, like at the first games, he just tried to down it, two-frame me, and then he started a bit with those jabs, but it was never that hard to get back to the stage. And then against Chrome, it feels like really like a prison there on the ledge, and and to stay on the topic and to brighten it a bit more, and also to make a bit the connection to the current meta. The advantage state gets better. Like people hold the advantage state better, they cover options better, they find better ways to pressure. And Samus suffers that, in my opinion. Like she, in the end of the day, she's still a bit clunky, In close combat, she struggles a bit. And if opponents understand when to respect the charge shot and understand Samus mix-ups, like for example, the way I play, I play a lot of mix-ups. But if people know what I'm up to, and then they find ways to get in, and then it makes it way harder for me. And let me give you two examples. The first one is, against Gluto. I did play him for after COVID. It was quite a while until I played him again. It was on Icaribana in Switzerland like 1-2 months ago. And he played totally different than pre-COVID, and I was like so surprised. And the way how he played before, he played, let's say, more all around, and then he played all pressure. All pressure. He was always in my face. The problem is, like Charles said before, like Vario is a bit like a fly. Like he may get to your face, but maybe he decides in the last moment to float a bit back, and then suddenly I need to be super careful. I want to use my API or any other, let's say, call out I need to make to keep Vario away from me, like up air, fair when he's in the air, when he gets into my shield with the API out of shield, or maybe sometimes horizontal with the charge shot. Every commitment I do can be punished if I get baited. And Gluto is very good at that, to mix it up. So you need to have very good awareness as a Samus player to keep track of that. And Skiski told me also, like, he has a lot of problems against Gluto. And I remember, especially pre-COVID, people were saying Samus wins the matchup. And I don't think this is the case anymore. I would say it's simply around an even matchup. Because Samus can be pressured pretty well. Like, if people know how, this is her weakness. And this is why in the current meta, it's not easy to play her.
It's what Charles talks about, right? If you if you know how to not shut down Chargeshot, but if you know how to not get dominated by Chargeshot, she has to rely on her other tools, and then her other tools don't have that same risk reward. And that's kind of what Gluto's doing, right? He's like, okay, you have to play around my pressure. You can play around my pressure, but the dynamic of that situation is just advantageous for Wario in the long run. And I think for every character like Samus, like, you know, Min Min, Steve, Pac-Man, Snake, like all those characters who have like very specific game plans that revolve around dynamics that are not like fundamentally part of Smash, but more so designed around the character's tool set specifically. The longer the meta goes on, the less strong these dynamics get, because people start to learn how to play these dynamics more accurately. And then what they learn more than anything is how to compensate for moves. And what I mean by that is like a charge shot, right? Like you cannot shut down Chargeshot, but you can make it so that Chargeshot does not dominate the game. And if you're at that point, then you're forcing them to rely on their plan B. We talked about plan A and plan B before, right? In the Wario episode especially. And a lot of these characters that function very well within their own game plan, they don't have the best plan Bs. And that's, I think, for Samus, not as much the case as for some other characters on that list, but it's definitely still the case, right? Where her up B, it's good, but it's also like, you know, the risk reward is not amazing. And she doesn't have like a quick get off me normal, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely makes sense that Wario would be a hard matchup to fight, where it's a lot of bait and punish, which at the end of the day comes down to mostly player read as well as managing risk reward, but mostly player read, especially if both characters are decent. So I think that's a good example. I think another example of a character that does that really well against Samus that you normally wouldn't think so are like the slower sword fighters. Like, you know, I know you beat Leo's Byleth, right? Quick.
Alright.
Corrin. You're right. You beat the Corrin.
So yeah, in the winners final I lost very close to Corrin, and then in the grand final I won the first game, and then switched to Byleth and I lost.
Right. And I think characters like Corrin and Byleth also do fine against Samus, because at that speed, at that range, it is very I don't want to say easy, but it's a lot easier to be exact enough to make Chargeshot less of an issue. Because the thing with Chargeshot that I think people kind of overestimate about the character or about the move is that it's kind of reactable in a lot of mid-range scenarios, which doesn't mean that you can punish it, but it means that you can make sure you don't get hit by it. And a lot of the slower sword characters, they play that mid-range so carefully that they're almost never committing in a way that allows you to Chargeshot to beat them out in that range. And that way they can basically say like, okay, well, your Chargeshot is like no longer a threat in and of itself. It's more so how you mix up with the threat of the Chargeshot, and that is where they pull Samus into their own game, and they can stand up to the character. Even though on paper you would think like, oh, sword characters get outranged by projectiles, they're slow, they cannot get it in easily. You see Leo time and time again play that dynamic really, really well.
And I think that what that really highlights is that the kind of across the board weakness that Samus has is
Salmon.
pretty close. The
Love it.
her vertical speed is pretty low, so she can still move up at the same speed, but pretty much every character that is relevant in the game is going to have a faster fall speed, faster fast fall speed, and so while her aerials are good at air to airing, generally, if once someone is in position to juggle Samus, they stay in position to juggle Samus. And so, to go all the way back to the top question, I think what really separates I would say the top Samuses from the high level Samuses is the ability to use drift to get around these situations by exploiting the nuance that the opponents don't have when they're juggling. So if you are spacing so that you're just trying to hit her with the tip of your aerial, for example, something that a lot of Samus players are going to use is they'll use that down B to just very slightly dodge it. And then so as you get closer to top cut, as you get closer to those finals, is there's players who understand that you need to overshoot against Samus when she is in disadvantage. That you need to hit both sides of her down B. Just assume she goes left and right at the same time. And if you have an aerial or drift enough that gives you that range, hit both sides. That's something that we've seen Gluto do. It's something that you can really see Steven doing against Siski over at Rise and Grind this past weekend. Is you see him just really overshooting, and then when he did get the hits, he really pushed them. And the people who beat Samus players really push their hits, and they don't really let Samus reset to neutral. You can't get ledge trapped if Samus is getting juggled. You can't get ledge trapped if Samus is off stage. And so from there, it's also a matter of a lot of Samus players are getting off the ledge for free because people are underestimating her fair as a contesting option for your ground moves. And so people either overestimate how quickly they can react to Samus fair from ledge, or they underestimate how much range it has and comes out. And so they'll try and press a button to it. And instead, something that we're starting to see people realize is that Samus's aerials are actually not that great on block. So she does have like niche circumstantial aerials like landing nair. So she can do things like landing nair to jab. And that's going to be some decent shield pressure that will buy her time to do something like dash back. And I know that's something Quik likes to do. But aside from that, like her fair is never going to be safe on block if you have even a decent out of shield option. Most of the viable characters have a KO move that is going to be fast enough to punish it. For example, if she drifts into you, and then if she starts drifting back, then usually it's going to be even less safe than that, which it's just a matter of, as we said before, it comes down to player reads. It comes down to these situations where Samus essentially needs to put herself in worse positions just to mix up already not good positions. And so once you get closer to the finals of a major, that you're going to run into, or the players who are going to recognize this, exploit it, they can react in time. And then on top of that, they're also going to be able to make those player reads. And so I think that's what really separates the two differences. You also, it's the difference between whether or not players can edge guard Samus, I would say, because something Gluto does that you don't really see other people do is he'll go out there, he'll shoot up high to cover the Zair snap, because the way an early Zair works is it pops Samus up very high relative to the ledge. So to see him shoot over like he's covering her double jump, except he doesn't overextend too far that she can actually double jump over him. And then he'll come down and kind of just protect the area around the ledge instead of trying to hit Samus herself. And so sometimes what you'll see is you'll see Samus players then try and just stall. And then if the player is good enough that they can react to a bomb off stage, which you always can, it's more than 40 frames. You can react to it and still put out an aerial to punish her on reaction every single time. And so then Gluto will just go out there, he'll wait. Samus tries to stall, she does something committal, and then he'll just hit her for it. Usually he'll use this in conjunction with things like Waft. As we saw from Anathema, he actually got in multiple what were close to 0 to death combos just because he was ready and preparing for Siski's habits because he had so much time from seeing Siski move earlier. And also he went into the set prepared, but that's the second thing. So I think that's really what sets it apart. And then to take it a step further, what I would say separates Sisui Mon Ami is that he actually tends
Tony.
to tax people coming from his ledge traps into the mid range. And so sometimes, or most high level Samus players, less so Quick, but other Samus players, you'll see them basically just retreat, ignore center, and just run to the other corner so that they can exchange their stage control for Chargeshot. And they feel safer when they have Chargeshot, and so they'll just directly exchange that stage control for resources.
That's the quick play move right there.
Yes, sir. Well, it works. It works all the way
That's what
past
thieves
the
do.
That's the
what thieves
Wi-Fi
do.
special right there, yo. I'm going to the corner. I'm like, and you know you're on some Wi-Fi when you like see the Samus do like 3 rolls, and then they get to the corner, and then they start charging. That's the fun. That's the fun.
Especially on PS2 when they have the platform to guard themselves. It's like
Yeah.
I know how it's
I
gonna
always
be.
hear the Charlie yelling, "Stop rolling!"
Oh,
Iconic.
Yes.
Oh.
But yeah, so Siski will actually mix up whether or not he's going to do that, and then sometimes he'll just hold his ground, or he'll use a feinting movement, and then he'll hold his ground. But what I would like to see more from him is to essentially add that layer, because if he does come back to the ledge, you don't see him tax as much at center stage. At least he doesn't do it consistently. So whenever I'm watching his matches, or whenever I'm advising someone on how to beat him, that's usually, I would say, the biggest hole that I see is just whether or not he's letting you have that space for free without challenging you for it. And so if you can get away with that, then it's going to give you a lot of extra mileage, and most Samuses just aren't even going to contest you for it because they'd rather have that Chargeshot. So as long as you know how to be patient and wait out the Chargeshot scenario, like Ramses just said, then you can basically take away all that stage control that she exchanged, and then you essentially get the equivalent of a stage control that she already spent on her Chargeshot by just getting her to whiff a Chargeshot. So you essentially take stage control back twice with the same movement without ever putting yourself at risk. And that's my perspective on it.
It's hard for the Samus player too, in my opinion, because I feel like on paper, if you have your like 99% charge shot, you are so much stronger in neutral than most characters that you should be able to push them back into the corner. But in practice, what we see is that a lot of Samus players prefer to throw it out, because they would rather throw it out and have it be shielded or miss than lose neutral while holding the charge shot, if that makes sense. Because then it's like, well, if I lose neutral while holding charge shot, I might as well throw it out there as like a coverage option, etc. And I feel like what you need at like top level for Samus is you need the discipline to not throw it out when your opponent is showing that they're respecting it. And I think there's almost no Samus that in a pressure situation is able to do that.
It's interesting too because
so many good points from you guys. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting too because Quick was talking earlier how strong small Chargeshot is in this game comparatively to the other Smash games, right? And I think even like shooting your big Chargeshot might even be a subconscious thing of like, okay, I'll shoot this big Chargeshot. If I get the kill, cool. And then if not, like even just having access to small Chargeshot's not bad, right? I think I think when your opponent's in KO percent, obviously the larger like both charge shots are probably going to end up in a KO, right? Whether it be the small charge shot into maybe a dash attack or like some kind of follow up, or the big charge shot just from raw knockback. But obviously, the big charge shot being the transcendent, larger hitbox, like that's just going to be
It's
more
not
consistent to
transcendent,
hit,
but
right?
it's not transcendent. It's just really hard to clank because it does so much damage.
Oh, because
But
it
it's
does.
not transcendent.
Oh,
It
so
does
that's
like
why the smaller ones are
25.
easier to hit out. I thought
Yeah.
it gained the transcendent property when it
No,
was large.
it just does 25. So you need to do like 16 plus to clank it, which good luck.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that
Yeah.
move is just base all around. I thought it gained transcendency when it was fully charged.
Effectively, yes.
right, like yeah, but it's technically not. You just have to have
Yeah,
a move
yeah.
that does like a crap ton of
Mm.
damage.
It's very
You're
rare
actually
when
with
this
a
better.
smash
happens.
attack.
It's actually better that it's not transcendent because that means that it can eat smaller projectiles too.
Oh, like yeah, like trample over, like eat them, and
Yeah,
because like a wolf blaster won't stop it, and you'll trade projectiles.
exactly. You
Right.
trade, so she doesn't even
It,
trade.
it,
She
it
just
also
uses-
eats like strong aerial attacks when it's nearly
Yeah.
a 100 persons. Like
Right.
a Roy gets in with a fair, I don't care. I just shoot it and I
Yeah.
win.
Yeah, so charge shot management definitely sounds like it, because on when you look at the move, you're like, oh, this is a simple move, right? You just charge and it gets bigger, but there's like mid charge shots, and then even like all the tech with canceling it, right? Like you can just cancel without shielding. You can jump. In Ultimate, it was a super big deal that you can jump out of charging, so you could like be reverse jump, right, which opened up a bunch of creative things. So I think charge shot management is probably the hardest thing, and it just gets harder in certain matchups, right? Like managing charge shot against Olimar is even harder, right? And some of these other characters, or even some of these speedier characters, where it's like, oh, I can start a charge shot, but Mithra's burst range is so large. The moment I start charging, it's almost like I'm charging, and then Mithra's halfway across the stage, but I can get hit, right? So it's like, do you keep charging? Do you not, right? And I guess that was one of my last questions that I wanted to ask you quick. How do you think Samus's transition into the current meta game, which is being, I wouldn't say dominated, but it is getting affect, like this current meta game is heavily being affected by Steve, Pyramithra, Min Min, right? Some of these DLC Fighter Pass 2 characters, right? And how do you think Samus thrives in said environment? Because I think there was a lot of characters before Fighter Pass 2 where you're like, oh, yo, these characters are kind of slapping, right? Like maybe this character's got some sauce. And then Fighter Pass 2 was the reality check. Like, I think Yoshi is a character. Well, Yoshi's weird because you're good against Steve. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like there's some characters in every Smash game where they're really solid, and then the DLC came out, especially like if you're comparing Smash 4 and Ultimate. Certain DLC characters came out, and like these characters are just kind of falling off. Or do you feel like set in this current meta with the impact of Fighter Pass 2, do you think Samus is a character that can thrive against characters like Steve, Aegis, stuff like that?
My opinion is yes, but it's definitely harder with them being around for sure. Like it's even a personal issue. Like I have a bit of problems against Kazuya, even though on paper Samus wins simply because, like you guys said, they have like kind of their own system, and getting into their own system and every team being so specific is something I personally struggle with, and I think as a Samus player you need to be good at that to play in their system, playing around the tools like against Steve. You need some specific counterplay. You need to know what to do against certain tools. I mean, of course, this is for every character the same. Again, everybody needs to play in the system of Steve for sure. But it makes it definitely more tricky in a tournament environment, right? But in my opinion, there's like no matchup where I would say it's too hard in tournament, right? It just needs enough work.
You think she's solo mainable? At top level, like if you want to be the best in the world, is she solo mainable?
Ooh, dang, this is a heavy one.
Yeah, that's this is hitting it right in the field.
With enough work, yes. It's hard work though, but it's like borderline. It's like very borderline. Borderline is all viable, if you ask me.
Fair, that's fair. I think
some people might say I'm optimistic though, but I think that's true.
Siski's already made multiple top 8s at this point.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Not a big leap.
Right. Yeah. I think to be a top 5, top 10 player for sure. I think Ramses came hard in the paint when it was like the best player in the world, and that's when Quik was like, oh.
All right,
like,
I'm sorry.
But
you know
yeah,
what
yeah,
I mean, though.
Yeah. I mean, to be solo viable and to be the best player in the world when you only play Samus, it is quite the tall task, right? There's incredible players that you have to beat, and then even when you think about the current meta, right? Like there's these players that play specific characters, and when you ask that question, that it's kind of like, can you beat those players / characters with Samus? That's what it really comes down to, right? Because
That's what it comes down to.
we're not in a vacuum, right? We know what the top players play. We know what the top 10, the top 20, 50 players play. So it's kind of like you take a snapshot of that environment and you're like, all right, can Samus succeed here? Can Samus be the best? And I mean, I respect the opinion, right? Like you said, if you feel like just because Samus has to play out of the box, you still feel like Samus has the tools to do it, right? And that's definitely
Yes.
something I can respect.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
And
that's
you,
great.
you guys talked about the right things, like how to deal with our biggest resource, the charge shot. Maybe to not shoot it at times, but to keep it and to observe what the opponent does. This reminds me of a set against Mezcal, a very good Ridley, and I noticed how I had that awareness for some reason against him. He tried to bait my charge. I was cornering myself in a way. I was charging there, and then instead of shooting, I was like, no, wait, no, it won't shoot. And it was a pressure situation. And I saw how he slowly backed up. He gifted me the stage. And I was not shooting. I simply kept walking forward and he gifted me to it. And in the end of the day, I had my charger and had the stage control. And this kind of understanding what the opponent is up to. What does he want to pressure me right now? Or is he respecting me?
Mhm.
And this kind of macro adaptations is what on top level is done a lot. Also in the middle of a game or in the middle of a set, and the Samus player needs to understand what's going on.
Yeah, because there's gonna be situations where you have to sniff out. All right, this motherfucker's not respecting me. Like, I need to smoke him with this
Yeah.
charge shot. I need to remind him like what he needs to respect, and you just need to blow him out of the water with the charge shot, right? So, I think understanding that intention and that's when, in my opinion, that's when you know a move is really good, right? Like Steve Minecart, Steve Anvil. There's these moves where, for the most part, you have to like create so much distance between you and that move to give yourself time to react to it, right? So if you can sense that your opponent's like, okay, my opponent's like really respecting charge shot, you to respect charge shot, you have to either be like completely off the ground, or you have to be at least a roll distance, maybe if not more, away from
Yeah,
you
roll
on the ground,
distance.
right? So even just kind of like mapping out, like, okay, I'm about to hit full charge shot. Where's my opponent? In the air? Is he on the ground, like drifting back? Right? Like, what are the intentions? And if you can abuse charge shot to gain stage control, that's best case, right? Because if you get stage control and charge shot, it's like, okay, now you're looking really good. And then if they're still over respecting it, Samus is a character that can set up even more tools, right? Because like you said, the way Gluto switched it up is he's not respecting it as much anymore, right? There's more pressure, so it's like if you do a simple drift, if the moment Gluto does a full hop in, right, and you at that moment press down B drift back, Gluto's like, oh, because you didn't respect the fact that I will come in at this specific time, I'm gonna punish you, right? Hit you at 60, waft you, GG's, right? So it's like, and even then, that's that level of respect you have to kind of see in your opponent and judge by your opponent's burst options, right? Like, oh, okay, they're about roll distance. Like, I might be able to get a little charge here, but if I commit to morph ball, that is too long, and I don't have enough distance, right? Like, judging what you can set up based off of the distance of the opponent at the current time is such a important aspect to have as a zoner, especially when you have certain tools that, like, okay, X amount of distance, I can set up morph ball for free. They can't hit me, right? At this distance against this character. Oh, but they're closer. Okay, I can charge a little bit, maybe get a dash back in, right? Like, understanding every little bit of distance and calculating it on the spot and being like, what is safe and what is not safe for me to set up, essentially. Because
And also pushing it, right? Because like
right,
a lot of the things you're talking about is like razor's edge. Because if you're a little bit off on the spacing, you're gonna get punished. So in that sense, it's hard. I think that's the hardest part for Samus. Is like, when can you squeeze in a little bit of extra distance, a little bit of extra charge time, a little bit of extra pokes, and that is why what Quick talked about like bracket pressure is so big, because like it's so easy for Samus to say, you know what, instead of living on the razor's edge, I'm gonna dash back charge shot. So getting that balance out in a pressure situation, like you said, Charles, just really hard on in terms of your mentality, I think.
yeah, because every bit of charge matters, right? Because charge shot essentially is a setup tool, right?
Yeah,
So it's a
it is.
setup tool that you can just also fling out as a threat. So multifaceted, obviously very good, obviously one of her best moves, right? So can do a bunch of different things. It has a bunch of different mix-ups, and you can cancel it. So you have a ton of options there, but it's like, when I feel like a lot of people might think Samus is simple, and there are simple execution things about her in terms of just like, okay, like, I'm ledge trapping, get the timing right on the down special, right? Boom, boom, go from there, right? But when you look at charge shot in particular, there it's such a multifaceted tool that it can be hard to do. Like Ramses said, do you get that little bit of extra charge more? Like that little bit of extra charge more could matter later on, right? And especially if you snowball it and it's like, oh, I got a little bit of extra charge 6 times in that game. That little extra bit of charge 6 times was one whole extra charge shot, right? Because like if the Samus is like micromanaging it almost perfectly, the comparative to the distance that their opponent's playing. So essentially, your refresh rate has to be insane to micromanage charge shot perfectly, which
Yeah.
we're humans, so it's not going to always happen. But if you have that awareness and you're able to refresh the situation really, really quick, that's happening against a lot, especially against a lot of these fast characters, and you optimize charge shot, I think the character can go really far. But that's a very hard thing to do, especially in your matchups that charge shot gets shut down in certain situations, right? Because then you have to add a whole nother layer of awareness because it's like, okay, well, like I'm doing all of this stuff with the charge shot, I'm getting it ready, but then there's also all these other times during this matchup because I'm fighting an Olimar that I can't use the charge shot. So it's like now I got to rely on the other moves, but I still need to, when I can use the charge shot, I still have to be able to try and use it, right? Because it's that big of a tipping tool in your favor. So yeah,
Like
super interesting.
one of the very important things that Samus has is that once the value of her just being able to fire the charge shot, once she fires it, even if you block it, that usually just jumpstarts her offense because all of a sudden she doesn't have to grab you to beat your shield. So she essentially has multiple attacks that are pretty much guaranteed shield stabs. She can overshoot and cover all of your movement options. She has some of the best anti-airs in the game. So it really sets up for her aggression. And so that's usually where you jumpstart her offense.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually what really is a struggle for her in a lot of these matchups is that these are characters that once her aggression is turned on can still fight her. Like they don't need shield to fight her. So characters like Olimar, you're never going to get that initial charge shot in the first place because there's usually going to be a Pikmin body blocking it. So then you're having to look at an entirely separate context of, well, how do I attack Olimar when Olimar has a full shield? Because I'm not going to get that free shield damage, and all of my aerials are not going to be safe on Olimar's block without highly telegraphing. And if I highly telegraph it, then I lose to Olimar's anti-airs, and so it's a very different problem than what Samus's are usually capable of. And then, of course, those faster characters are actually so fast. Some of these characters can actually avoid her overshoots because like if you charge shot Mithra's shield and dash attack in, she can just foresight you because she's got backup defenses.
I don't need a shield.
So,
I got
yeah.
DLC,
Oh
baby.
yeah, foresight, baby.
And then they have sword aerials to protect them. So like Roy Fair, you can counter hit it, but if he's jumping back with it, it's a whole lot harder to do it, especially if he's specifically timing the fair to cover your dash attack in. And then you have to like dash grab in, but if you did literally anything else, then all of a sudden you're not actually covering that anymore. So
The glue that holds it together is a ledge trap, dude.
Yes,
Because
sir.
like even if you cannot achieve your normal win condition, you just need to hit them like 3 times and then up tilt kills them at the ledge. It really, I honestly believe that ledge trap is what makes Samus work in a lot of matchups. And I don't know if you agree, Quick, but it like being able to, because like if charge shot is not a win condition in neutral, you're gonna hit them in other ways, and your other ways just aren't that rewarding. But if you can all kind of like make it come together with a good ledge trap, then it's doable, right? It's still doable.
Exactly, like Olimar, great example. If you get him, if you win those few neutral interactions, only like 2-3 more per game can make such a big difference because it snowballs. Sam's advantage state is good, not even only ledge trap. Her edge guarding is surprisingly good too. Her corner, when simply the opponent's on the corner,
True.
they're shielding. It's awful for them. Like I can throw out a Zerd. Like we didn't talk about Zerd at all, for example. It's also so good. It's free shield poke tool or free poke tool in general. Like she's great, and this is why I love her in this game. Like her advantage state, maybe still a bit underestimated, but I think Siski right now is showing how good her advantage state is. Also in general, like how crazy she can push, and this makes it really interesting because like in neutral you see her usually being more defensive. But she has a lot of different layers, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It was a really good conversation, kind of getting to really break down the characters. I think the viewers really appreciate that. Just really breaking down the strengths, the weaknesses, and even some of these core tools, right? I think some of the things that we really harped on when, like, if I feel like Chargeshot and the ledge trap are really the cornerstones. I don't think you can really shut down her ledge trapping. There's like a handful of characters that maybe like Sephiroth with Wing and stuff like that, right? But it's like the ledge trap always feels like the fundamental win condition or ledge trap slash like advantage state, right? And then past that, it's like, okay, what is can I play the charge shot game, right? Does the character shut down charge shot? If not, Samus is going to be able to do Samus things, right? You could probably play like the
Yeah.
standard like Samus strategy, really centered around charge shot, and then some of these harder matchups is when charge shot gets shut down, and it's like, okay, Samus, now you as a Samus player have to find these advantage state situations because charge shot feels like it snowballs because it's like charge shot is the neutral tool that is the backbone of her neutral that will set her up for the advantage state, which snowballs to her biggest strength essentially, right? And then from there you're able to pick up the wins. But the matchups that are a little harder that you have to think outside of the box is how are you going to set up advantage state without charge shot or with a limited charge shot with a charge shot that you can't use as often. And I think that is kind of like the TLDR that we've broken down. Obviously, we've broken down in depth throughout the entire episode, but yeah, overall, just fantastic information. And just real quick, real fast, quick. Okay, there we go. So what do you think? How strong? Like, where would you put Samus on a tier list? The top? Like, do you think she's like top 20, top 10, top 30, or if you like just rather like say out tiers? What do you think?
20 sounds good to me.
Like about top 20? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Around,
like you said.
let me ask you in a different way. Around who would you place Samus?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, good question.
I personally put her around like Snake, something like that.
Yeah, sounds good. Where would you guys put Sephiroth? Maybe also around that range.
Also around that range, personally, maybe a
Okay.
little bit better, but
I think
yeah.
I think Samus is better than Sephiroth personally, but I don't.
Oh, really?
I don't think highly of Sephiroth. I don't think Sephiroth is that good.
The top 5 Sephiroth era is over, dude.
I was capping.
Dude, you flopped. You
I was-
flopped for a
I
solid
was-
month for
That was probably like
Same as
my.
Byleth. Byleth is a good example, I think. Around that
okay.
area.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's my worst Smash take in all of history of my.
It's
Smash
good.
takes.
It got you views. It got you clicks. That's all you need.
Don't
I mean,
worry
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
I only did it
thought
for the
Inkling
clickbait.
was going to be the best character in the game. You've got some room to go.
I was on
You're-
that train. I definitely thought Inkling was some bullshit when the character came out. I was just like, look at this dash, dude. How do you lose neutral when you have this dash? You're trash if you lose
That's
neutral
true.
with
That's
this
true.
dash.
Up there, up here. What's
Hey,
that?
it's all said. Steve was the worst character in the game. You know, like at the end of the day, because of that one video, we're all allowed every hot take that we have.
Thank you,
Like,
Izal.
Izal, you did us a solid, man. Appreciate that.
That is so.
You're coming in strong. Coming
Is
in
that
Can
video
always
still
just
up?
push over that cup.
Is that
Yeah.
video still up on YouTube?
It probably is.
That's so.
Yeah, it
has
doesn't really matter though. There's so many. Like the meme would survive the video anyways. Like,
Yeah.
people
Sure.
are gonna look it up.
Dude,
So,
it's on the internet. It doesn't die. It's alive
just
forever.
own it.
All right. Well, I mean, fantastic episode today. Let us know in the comments what you think about Samus. Let me know if you think Samus is top 5, 10, 20, 30, or another variant, like Ramses said. What character do you think Samus is like next to on the tier list? I think that's another good way to kind of judge characters and stuff like that instead of a number, kind of like, oh, around the same strength as this character is pretty fair, right?
Yeah.
I do really like that. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and until next time, class dismissed.